Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've got so many mails. I don't know. I'm gonna have to just like devote a weekend at some point, lock myself in a room, and just like plow through them until my voice is hoarse. That's what we're gonna have to do. But anyway, here's a mail, hanging on by a thread. Okay, that's me. That's me. I don't know why my email has gotten so terrible. But anyway, it goes, "Hey Perch, I hope you're doing well. I recently wrote you for the first time regarding a comic I'm working on. This is the original thing I wanted to discuss with you. Hear your thoughts in a video format. A little background first. I'm a 22-year-old black male from Columbus, Ohio. I grew up in an urban environment, and barely anyone around me is actually reading comics. Even my friends who love superheroes, they'd all rather watch the movies and shows and view the comics as redundant. My fiance reads comics here and there. I'll take her to a local shop. She'll grab a few random books that catch her eye, and that's the furthest extent, though. I got into comics by watching superhero films with my dad when I was a kid. The 2000 Spider-Man and X-Men films. Thank you, you asshole. You made me feel very young, or very old. Sorry, not young. I'm kidding. Batman Begins and Superman Returns. Once my parents brought me my first comic at age 8, I was kind of hooked, but not necessarily reading monthly. But every chance I could get my hands on a comic, I was excited. I find myself now at the age of 22, going on 23 this year. I am now engaged with a child on the way. Stable job. It's just making me feel older and older with every progressive word. Stable job. Still working on my dream, though. I say all this to say, oh my Christ, Marvel and DC make it hard to keep up with their publishing month to month. There are so many new titles I've read, like Robin, Donny Cates' Hulk, Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, etc., that I enjoyed reading a lot. And it's not a problem when it's only like 3 to 4 books, but there are a bunch of titles I actually find interesting and love reading, getting upwards to 10 to 15. With all those books range from $3.99 to $5.99 a month, it's hard. I'm paying roughly $40 a month for this hobby. When it's that on top of the streaming services, the car note, insurance, rent, and other expenses of living, it becomes hard. It becomes hard to keep up with. Luckily, I find a good fix in reading old back issues, reading old series via Comixology, which arguably is I have a better time reading. I know you've talked about this and similar topics before, but I figured maybe it'd be a little different coming from a different perspective. It's not like I don't want to keep up with monthly titles, it's just a little tough, off-putting sometimes. Regardless, thanks for taking the time of your day to read this. Have a good one. Thank you very much for writing in. So, the scenario that's just been described that you just heard is, I think, probably a pretty common one. I would guess a decent amount of people fit into that category, particularly people who are younger coming into comics. It's a combination of things. It is the cost, but it's not just the cost. It's also the time. It's the fact that the lack of a consistent monthly publishing schedule often makes it tough to kind of get into. You've got a lot of other things that are coming up in your life that you're trying to deal with. It's just not easy to be in comics. Now, I think there's a lot of solutions to this, and one of the obvious ones is digital. Now, I know some people just don't like reading digital and everything else, but if you think about a kind of $9.95 all-you-can-eat kind of model, that would work perfect for a guy like this, the person who's writing it. It's going to be way, way more convenient to read those titles, catch up, and get that pastime going. The problem is, some people like print, that the conversion to digital has been tough. Now, the person here did mention Comixology, but by and large, these products, the digital products, are terrible. And they're hard to, you basically have to commit. And this is one of the things about technology that all industries face, is that if you want technology to kind of take over and get a hold of, get a foothold and work, you have to make the technology effortless. And today, comics, if you're reading them in a digital format, you have to put work into it. You have to actually kind of struggle a little bit in order to read it. It's not simple. Now, if you've been reading digital for a while, you probably disagree with me, and that's to be expected, because like many technologies, once you use it for a little while, you get used to it. Once you get used to it, Everything is very easy. Suddenly it's no problem at all. Suddenly it becomes second nature. But you have to make it effortless for the person to want to do that, to actually gain mass adoption of whatever that platform is. If you love comics and you're forced into it, you may hold your nose and just kind of like, well, like I've got to get into comics, and so you just kind of push yourself and you force yourself to accept it. That's not the best. That's kind of the early adopter curve. People who are just going to gut through it because they need it that bad. But if you want to gain mass adoption, you have to make it easy. And right now, the comic services aren't. But the other problem is that, I think that there needs to be a middle ground where people still like print. So arguably what should be happening, again, if you want to take the person who wrote in here and make them a bigger customer of yours to really keep them as a customer, one thing you might want to do as a company is say, hey, if you buy this physical comic, if you buy this copy of Donny Cates Hulk, it comes with a code. And that code is good for 2 digital comics of whatever you want. That would be a good idea, because I'll tell you exactly the consumer behavior that would happen. The person is going to buy that physical comic. The person is then going to use one of those 2 digital codes to get the digital version of the comic they just bought. You're going to take that comic, they're going to put it in a bag, and they're basically going to say, hey, I'm a collector, and now I have a better chance of preserving that copy and keeping it in a pristine kind of mint format. So I'm going to use up one of the 2 codes on the comic I just bought. Okay, so net, no loss. Then they're going to use that other code on a comic they wouldn't buy. So they're going to be more experimental with it. This is going to be where you're going to use that code to try out something that, you wouldn't normally buy, but it's free, so you might you give something a shot. Anything you think you might buy as a comic, you won't use that code for. So you're not going to see people you're not going to see a dip in price. You're not going to see a dip in revenue. Consumer behavior is you're going to see people who are going to still buy what they're going to buy, but they're going to use that code to try out something they wouldn't normally buy. And there is where you have a good chance of getting somebody to purchase something that they aren't buying today. Meaning what's going to occur is that they're going to say, well, I wasn't planning on buying Doctor Strange, but, the comic was free, so, I'm going to try out Doctor Strange. And, hey, if you do a good job of that comic and people like it, then guess what? They're going to then go to the shop and they're going to start buying it in a physical version. You're going to see your sales increase. It's actually a very classic digital trick that the publisher should do. And by the way, if you are a Boom Studios, if you're a Dynamite, if you're an AWA, if you're a Mad Cave, you should try that. Try it for a month. You're not gonna see a dip in your revenue. I guarantee it. You're going to see an increase because consumer spending behavior is going to create that effect. But regardless, the other elephant in the room here is that the content itself has to be good. So, this is a challenge. If you've got new readers who are interested in comics, liking buying them and everything else, you've got to hook them. And right now, bluntly, I'm going to be very generous. Several of these comics, they're not compelling reads. You may use more colorful language, but they read like this. They read like the people who are making the comics are uncertain if Discovery or Kevin Feige or Zaslav or whoever is going to allow them to keep making comics. They read not like somebody going out there and swinging for the fences with every single outing. They instead read like somebody who's kind of treading water, hoping not to piss off the media overlord that's in charge of their business unit, and just kind of keep eking comics out. Comics do feel extremely safe. They do not feel unsafe. They do not feel at all like somebody is really trying to make headway. It feels like somebody who's trying to just at the moment. And as long as you have that problem, these digital strategies I'm mentioning, they're good ideas and people should try it, but it's not going to move the needle too much unless you put out unsafe, swing for the fences, absolutely compelling, risk-taking comics. That's what's needed. So thank you for writing in. Again, I bet most of you fit into that camp. So in the comments below, would love to see some people tell me, is that you? Is the person who wrote that you? Let me know if it is.
And what's the solution? And thanks for listening.